Good morning, YouTube. It's Riding with Rick, and today's topic is who do you ride with or not? Let's ride. This is Riding with Rick. It takes a lot more to stop this motorcycle than what you're on.
Pulling right next to my poppy.
You survived Fort Edward Johnson?
Yeah, I
And
did.
before you turn left here, make sure the car is going. Oh! Fuck.
Just like that.
Just like that, yeah. Good morning, folks. It's Riding with Rick. I wanted to introduce some videos that are more topic related. You know, one of the first guys that I followed on YouTube in the interest of motorcycling is Michaeli7. And he does a lot of type videos where he just, on his way to work or home from work, he just randomly talks about topics that have either he's thinking about or is on his mind. And I find them very entertaining, just simply because, I don't know, it's easy listening. Let's put it that way. So I wanted to introduce a topic. Who do you ride with and who don't you ride with? I know for me, my motorcycling, whether you want to call it a sport, an activity, a hobby, whatever, has kind of evolved over the course of, I don't know, 35, almost 40 years. And I guess when I started riding years ago, you know, I went from like, you know, the dirt to street was the transition. And I don't know how old I was when I made that change, but when I made the change, I would constantly look for other people that I could ride with, like to share a camaraderie of what I was doing and my love for motorcycling. Now that's evolved over the course of several years. And now, who do I ride with? You know, watching some of Michaeli7's videos of like him out riding with his friend Moose, and some of the other trips that he's taken and produced videos on of, you know, out just touring areas of the country with all his buddies. I don't know the whole cast of characters, but to me, it just looks like a lot of fun. It really does. You know, out there with your buddies, just doing what everybody loves doing. But that said, like, I kind of gave up a long time ago trying to land on a group of friends to ride with. And I guess it's just because of the level of trust, or maybe my experience of riding with people that I'll get to in a little bit, but that I would never ride with. So there's a friend of mine that I've known for many years. He's a 5th gen Goldwing owner. I'll ride with him any day, anytime. He's, even though he's not, the past couple of years since obtaining his Goldwing, he really has not put a lot of miles on his bike, just because of other obligations, etc. He takes his passion of motorcycling very seriously. Like, and this man could, you know, if something breaks down on the side of the road, he's got a tool to fix it. You know, so, not that I don't carry tools. he has the right equipment, he has the right gear, and he's a very good rider. He's been riding virtually all his life. And I know when I go out with him and, we either go on a ride in the area or I go away with him somewhere, whether he's taking the lead or he's behind me. If he's behind me, I don't even have to look in my rear view mirror to know that he's going to be there. And if he's not behind me, something happened, that has never occurred, but that's the level of trust I have with him. Now, I will say this, is that my son has started riding, and he's got about a year under his belt, and, I've taken it very cautiously with him and trying to instill very good habits early on so he doesn't develop bad habits and think that, his bad habits are, a good thing. And I'm starting to build up that trust riding with him, that I know that when I look in the rearview mirror, he's going to be behind me. And being my son, I know, generally speaking, what he's going to do, what he's not going to do, and when. And I will say this, when I started riding, there was no such thing as a communicator, intercom, Bluetooth. And by the way, the guy that's in front of me right now, I don't know him. I'm just kind of following him. Picked him up on this ride. So, not that I wouldn't ride with this guy, but I do have to build up that level of trust. But back to back to the Bluetooth thing, is it has really opened up a whole different riding experience and escalated the trust factor when riding with somebody else, because you can talk to them, you can say, hey, we're coming into a sharp corner here, or, back off, like with my son, he'll be following a truck too close. Now, hey, back off that truck a little bit, whatever. Now, I would love to find a group of riders to go, traveling with, etc. Not necessarily like a motorcycle club, but maybe an association of people that generally have the same interest that I do. Ooh, look up in the distance there. That fog on that mountain, it looks ominous. But for the most part, it's like I've kind of got myself to where I solo ride, and I can ride the routes that I plan. I can stop when I want to stop. I don't have to generally sit there and say that. Well, I'll just say this, is I trust myself more than I trust others. I guess that's what it comes down to. So, who do you ride with? Are you a solo rider? Are you No, I'm not talking about having a passenger. I love getting out with my better half and just going out and spending the day with her, enjoying the sights and destinations that we pick out. But I'm talking about other motorcyclists, other people that are riding with you in a group, or you're just out with you and another buddy. Do you wait around on the weekends waiting for, your buddy to sit there and say, hey, let's go out and ride, and that's the only time you go? Or do you take it upon yourself to sit there and say, hey, other people have other obligations, etc. I'm not waiting around. I'm not going to be sitting on a couch all day. I'm going to get out on my motorcycle, and I'm going to go enjoy what I enjoy. I'm about to jump up on a I-78 westbound. I'm headed towards a little town called Beaver Springs, Pennsylvania, which is just south of Bald Eagle Mountain. And don't ask me why I'm going. I'm just going. I'm just getting out on the bike to ride. Have a good time. All right, back on topic. So, person number 2 that I decided that I couldn't ride with anymore. So this is a guy. He was just a friend of mine that, I met through a mutual acquaintance, and we got on the topic of like riding motorcycles somehow, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I ride. Let's go riding." I guess the light bulb started going off when I started asking questions like, "Hey, where do you generally ride to? Who do you ride with?" But when I started pressing questions about his riding, where he rides to, who he rides with, just general probing and stuff, he could never answer the questions, or he just kind of like, oh, whatever. He kind of like gave off a blasé attitude towards motorcycling. And it became very apparent when I went out and rode with him. So he owned a Honda, I think it was a Shadow, 750 Shadow, something to that effect. And he didn't take very good care of his motorcycle, which is the first indicator that he doesn't really take the craft or the sport or the hobby, whatever you want to call it, of motorcycling very seriously. Like, more he kind of viewed it as like, this is a tool that I have that, I just use to like for enjoyment, that's fine, whatever. I guess maybe in my riding experience at one point in time I was more like that, but yet I would take it up a notch. Like, I'm not going to sit there and park my motorcycle out in the rain. If I had to do that, I wouldn't own a motorcycle. It's just I care too much about the equipment that I buy, etc. Whatever. I'm getting off on my high horse here. But the guy had a problem with his turn signals. He could not remember to turn his turn signal off. And I would sit there and if I got in front of him, I'd, give him the turn signal, like your turn signal's on. I mean, it got to the point where it was just ridiculous. Like, he would ride with his turn signal on for miles. And it's very dangerous. Like, if anybody watching this video thinks that, like, not canceling your turn signals after a turn is not, like, what's the big deal? It's a big deal. Because I'll tell you why. If I'm going down the road after making a right turn and my right turn signal's on and there's a car coming out onto my road making a left-hand turn, well, he just might sit there and think like, oh, he's turning right, and pull out right in front of you, and guess what? You're going over the car. And that almost happened to this guy. What's worse is that if I was in, so I figured I'll just ride in front of him, Well, same scenario, right turn signal on, guy pulling out, I'm in front of him, and the car, I don't trust drivers in cars. Oh, they're turning. The guy in the front just doesn't have his turn signal on. I'm pulling out. And I would sit there and say, like, to him, I said, like, look, you have a failure to, like, operate the motorcycle properly. You're not turning your turn signal off. I said, it's a problem. Like, it's every time. Like, sometimes he would take a right turn turn his turn signal on, take a right turn, and cancel it to like throw the left turn signal on, like he fumbled the switch, the old Honda switch. It decides, like, I'd just say, like, all right, listen, you get out and ride in front of me, and I'm just going to kind of, like, take it easy behind you. We'd be out for a ride just like, and another reason why I ride with a loaded route every time is because my experience with this guy, like, he would just, like, turn down random roads, and next thing you know, we're on a dirt road. He just, oh, I'm sorry, now you have to, like, and I was on a Victory Vegas at the time, which is not going down any damn dirt road, no way. And he'd just forge on, and I would be like, I'm not going down that gravel dirt road, it's just this monkey see, monkey do will get you in trouble on a motorcycle real quick. So I finally just stopped, talking about motorcycles, or when he would say, hey, let's go for a ride, I'd be like, I got something to do, whatever. Just because I couldn't go out and ride with a guy that, like, just haphazardly rode a motorcycle. And there was no evidence of any real skill. I mean, right out of the gate, just not even having the aptitude to know how to operate his turn signals. So that was the end of that. We remained friends, but I wasn't comfortable motorcycling with him. Okay, so now to the third guy, which ultimately led me to the decision when I go out motorcycling, I pick and choose who I ride with very carefully. So this guy was a motorcyclist that is generally ridden all his life. One that could handle a motorcycle, one that could at least get you the general confidence that he knew what he was doing. Later, after I rode with this guy, like, through, like, a whole year, found out that he had a problem with alcohol. Now, let me preface this saying that I don't drink. I just don't. And I certainly don't drink while I'm out on a motorcycle. But I don't want to get off on a tangent on that. But so we would go out riding, and I would notice that the first couple of rides would be like, we would just end up bar hopping. Like, we would ride from bar to bar to bar to bar. And it was always an excuse of why he wanted to stop at this bar. Like, hey, let's stop up at this really nice place I know up on my old neck of the woods. I want to say hi to somebody. And I go, okay, By the end of the ride, he's got a lot of booze in him. And I would notice it in his riding. Now, I finally told the guy after doing this a couple of times, I said, like, look, I'm not into stopping at bar from bar. If I'm going out riding, I'm on the road riding. I'm not going to be cozied up at some bar watching you drink. It's really not my cup of tea. So he's like, oh yeah, okay, that's fine. Then we would go out riding, and he'd never want to, like, take the lead. He'd always want to be behind me. Now, I'm going to talk about that rear view mirror for a little bit. when you're riding with somebody that you don't fully trust, you tend to look in that rear view mirror to see if they're behind you. And to see if they're behind you after exiting every curve in the road. Which, it takes your mind off of what you're doing, because you're worried about some other factor other than yourself and what you're doing. So sure enough, we'd be out riding, and we go around a corner when he was like maybe, 500 yards behind me or so, and I come out of the corner on a straight, and I look in that rear view mirror, and I wouldn't see him. And my first thought is he crashed. So I'd stop the motorcycle. Like a couple times, I'd stop the motorcycle, turn around, go back to that curve, and find him parked on the side of the road with an excuse like, "Oh, I made a wrong turn. I didn't know where you were going," whatever. And I always just thought it was just kind of strange. And I told him, I said, I didn't see you come out of that corner. I thought you crashed. "Oh no, I'm fine." And this went on he would repeat this kind of thing quite a bit, to a point where I'm just something's up. Well, what he was doing is he'd pull off to the side of the road and pull out a flask and drink it. And of course, in the time, I turn around, he's good to go. Now, the one time that we went out riding, and I brought up all these concerns to him, and the one time I actually saw him drinking out of a flask was that he was so far behind me, usually if you're out riding with somebody, generally speaking, you're going to try to do, you're going to generally try to keep the gap between you and the guy in front of you pretty tight, Well, one time I was he was just lagging further and further and further and further behind. I'm like, something's up. And I kind of slowed the motorcycle down, and I could see him pull out a flask from under his jacket and drink it. And he was riding. He wasn't riding with a helmet. Now, on that same day, I didn't confront him about it. I didn't want to embarrass him. I just kind of now I'm on high alert. Well, I guess by the end of the day, he was pretty sauced, right? And we were probably about a mile from home. And he passed me on a pretty rural road, a 2-lane rural road. He well over 100 miles an hour, up over a crest, which is blind, and I thought to myself, this guy's going to kill himself. Then, about a minute later, I caught up to him, and I told him, I said, look, you got to chill out, man. You just got to get home in one piece. Because by that time, the cat's out of the bag. I knew he was drunk. I'm on a right-hand turn, a pretty sharp right-hand turn, I would say, and the guy passed me on the inside of the turn. Oh, damn near took me out. The side of his bike damn near made contact with me. And I said, that's it. I can't ride with the guy anymore. He's going to kill me. So, I want to know who you ride with, and hopefully you ride with people that you trust, and, without disclosing names or situations, whatever. And Who won't you ride with? All right, so that's my topic. If you like what you're watching, please subscribe, and please click the like button, and more importantly, leave a comment. I will certainly comment on your comment. And thanks for watching. All right.